Welcome to the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast, where we break down what it really takes to win in short-term rentals in today's market. From insider tips and emerging trends to real conversations with top playmakers in the space, this show gives you the tools, strategies, and mindset to build and scale a successful short-term rental business. Now, here's your host, Joe Roney.
Today's episode is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents, the short-term rental real estate experts helping investors find profitable vacation rental properties nationwide. If you're serious about scaling your STR portfolio, Savvy STR Agents should be your first call.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast. Super excited to have Beth Turner with Simpli Host here today to talk about her platform and how it is a great way for you to get into the short-term rental space. So Beth, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah. So obviously we're going to talk a little bit about Simpli Host, but first I like to kind of hear, how many short-term rentals do you own? Why'd you get into it? And how are things going on your end?
Yeah, so I have I think everybody has funny stories on how they got into real estate in some shape or form. Mine was an accidental hosting scenario. I love Milwaukee Brewers, and so that will instantly put a little space between some of us, I know, and that's okay. But we used to go down to spring training at my mother and I for many, many years every year. But for the last 2 or 3 years, this is probably 2014, 15, somewhere in there, we were getting hosts to cancel on us. And this was Airbnb really wasn't a big thing just yet. It was still even home away. It wasn't even VRBO.
Yep. And
my bright mind and sassiness was like, fine, I'll just go buy a place ourselves then, since they keep canceling on us. And I just went down there to go look at some places. I had messaged a realtor on realtor.com or something like that, and never met them. Met them at this very first condo, and somebody had canceled their building contract. And he looks over at me and he goes, "You don't buy this? I will." And I was like, I didn't bring my checkbook. This is back in the day of checkbooks. He's like, "That's okay. I got you." And I was like, "Got me." He took me to his bank and he gave me a $1,000 cashier check and said, "Go buy this condo." And I was like, "Do you want my ID or some kind of collateral?" He's like, "You look like good people." And I was like, "Okay."
Nice.
Called my mom. I bought a condo. And then she said, "What are you going to do since you don't live there?" And I said, "Oh, I guess I'm going to have to Airbnb it."
Yeah.
Before Airbnb was a thing. And so that's how I became a real estate investor as well as even a host.
Wow. So that was your first property. What does your portfolio look like today?
So now it's more of a mix of long-term and short-term.
Okay.
So I'm in the Midwest, so in Wisconsin, and then I used to have some in Minnesota, and now I've just pared down to being just in Wisconsin, and have short-term rentals and long-term rentals.
Okay. And you live in Wisconsin?
I do. And I will say, when I also own this place in Phoenix, that's where we were at, it was really good to do remote because it forced me to put systems in place. So I learned, and I also then, after I did my STR dabbling into that world, I also did some fix and flips. I've owned a couple long-term rentals down in Kansas City. And so I did a lot of remote pieces, which I think has forced me to get into systems because I can't run down there and take care of them, right? I can't pop over and be like, "Oh, we're out of toilet paper." Okay, well, I'm not flying to Phoenix for it, so how do I put a system in place?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah. I've been, my home base is actually St. Louis, so big Cardinal fan. I'm actually in St. Louis. That's where
we call you guys the dirty birds, so you better be careful.
I know, you guys don't like it when we beat you all the time. I understand.
Correct.
It's okay.
Correct, that is the response.
But I do have, I did open my previous life, I was in corporate retail at Sears, and I opened 2 Sears stores in Milwaukee, and that's when I found Spotted Cow.
Oh, yeah. You can only get it in the state of Wisconsin. You can't get it anywhere else because they can't keep up with the production here.
Yes, it is. Anytime I see someone traveling to Wisconsin, I'm usually sending them a private message. "Did you drive or fly?" And they're like, "I drove." I'm like, "Great. I just sent you $50 in Venmo." They're like, "For what?" I'm like, "Just go to the gas station, just hit the liquor store, pick up some Spotted Cow, bring it back. We're good."
When I used to fly, prior to my real estate life, I was in healthcare, human healthcare, and I helped support electronic medical systems. And I actually had a gig in Hawaii. So I was flying back and forth I pretty much lived out there, but I would come back and forth. And I figured out a way to use the wine travel bags to put 2 bottles in at a time. And I literally took an extra suitcase and flew it to Hawaii with me. And I always joked with the TSA guys or the luggage guys, like, if you ever see a suitcase suds in, it's probably mine.
Yes.
Never broke a bottle.
Nope, that's awesome. That's awesome. So obviously you've been hosting for a while, and that brought you to finding a solution that helped solve some of your problems. So tell me about why you decided to jump in and create Simpli Host.
Yeah, so it started off of I'm a little bit of a techie. I don't like to be inefficient. And one of the things that we do is we handwrite welcome notes to our guests. And in our previous PMS, there was no way for us to like communicate that to anybody from a systems perspective. Like I couldn't text my cleaners like a couple days before, or I'd have to manually create a task in my system to be able to put that in there. And to me, those were inefficient. So I wound up like using like Monday.com and Zapier, and then managed to put all this information. We also used a cleaning system, and we also used a texting system for our guests and a lock system. And just like everybody I feel like has lately, this like tech stack, this like sets of apps to actually operate their business. And it worked for me. It worked for me for many years. I think I was up to like 4 or 5 vacation rentals, and I was maybe pulling like an hour to 3 hours a week, maybe, because it was all automated. It was great. And then I was really enjoying it. And then I had a bunch of other hosts that were like, hey, can you set up my system to be like yours? And I was like this baby's put together with duct tape and bubble gum. Like you're going to need 7 logins, 7 systems. And then when you also kind of step back and like add up all those systems, like cost wise, it gets a little pricey too. And so finally one of them was really needling me, and she was like, well, can't you just build this for us? Like just go out and develop it. And I was like, she's like, you're in software development. And I was like, I support electronic medical records. That's completely different than coding something. And I don't know how to code. So here we go. And so this was before AI was really big, which is crazy to say that was less than 2 years ago. And so it was really like I had to first I hired a development firm, learned some lessons along the road for that, and then hired all of our own in-house staff. So our own developers, our own QA, those types of pieces. And it's been a journey, but it really came out of, I was good with the system that I had, and I loved it because it was something I understood. If something broke, I roughly knew where it was. I had to go to Zapier or Monday.com to fix it, but I couldn't help my fellow hosts. It was something where like I could be like, hey, I'm up on top of this mountain by myself, see you guys struggling, and I don't do well in those scenarios, right? I want to be able to lift people up with me, and so that's how I became Simpli Host.
Okay, great. So tell me about, a little bit about how Simpli Host works. Obviously everyone's got a PMS, right? I personally use OwnerRez. You got Hospitable and HostAway.
Correct.
And there's 1,000 of them out there. And I think in my opinion, since I've been in the business, which has only been about 4 years, it definitely has shrunk down to what it was. Like at one point, I think there was 100 plus PMSs out there, and I think there's really down to about maybe 10 or 12 that people really use now. But what are some of the things that you're proud that Simpli Host does that you just feel like that's something that really sets you apart?
Yeah, I think one of the pieces is we can encompass the whole journey in like one screen. So for example, my prior life of the 7 apps, I would have a guest text me on one app and say, hey, can I check in early? And I'd be like, well, I can't see my calendar on this app. I got to go log into my PMS. And of course, we're doing this all from our phones because we're all mobile. And then I'd go to my PMS and I would say, oh, yep, I can, we're not a back-to-back. And then I would say, oh, wait, but I don't know if the house is clean yet. So then I would go log into the cleaning software and say, oh, it looks like the cleaner completed their task. And then I would return back to the text and I'd say, yeah, what time do you want to check in? But if I was real proactive, I would ask that first. But even then, they would come back, they'd choose a time, great. Then I go back into my PMS, update that time, and then go through that process. So very disjointed. At the same time, could easily be done, but it was something where I was jumping from 5, and if one of them logged you out, you logged back in. Or for example, then we would have this one system where we would text guests, and we would have this one system we would communicate to them through Airbnb and VRBO. So we would have a disjointed conversation thread as well. And so do all of those pieces. That's what I was doing prior to Simpli Host. And now with Simpli Host, we are all in one inbox screen. So you can text your guests, you can email your guests, and you can also chat with them via Airbnb and VRBO. And then even on that entire screen, you can see what your upcoming reservations are. So you can see, am I back to back? We also have a full built-in checklist and cleaning software system. So for example, as soon as my cleaner is done with their checklist for that previous reservation, it instantly updates my status to vacant clean. So I can look right on the screen and be like, oh, house is ready, check. I can see I'm not in a back-to-back, check. And then also I have the ability to set my time on that. And it also sends all the lock updates out at the same time, all on one screen. So there's no bouncing between apps, no figuring out, hey, is the house ready? Is it not? It's all in that one piece.
No, that's awesome. I mean, because I do, obviously I use Breezeway and use,
Yep.
OwnerRez and all
Yep.
that. So, what are your API integrations like with other softwares? Obviously
Yep.
Airbnb, VRBO, stuff like
Yep.
that. What does
Yep.
that
So you
look
got the
like?
big three, like everybody does, right? The Airbnb, the VRBO, the Booking.coms. We have the ability to branch out. I still don't know where to go next because there's so many other little ones out there, and also semi-big ones. I think like Agoda. There's a couple other ones, Google Vacations that are getting bigger, and we have the ability to connect to those as well. And then from a connection standpoint, we have the Price Labs. There's one thing that I probably won't bring in-house is Price Labs. I'm very hesitant to mess with people's pricing, and I think you have to have a really deep data understanding, a lot of data points to be able to make those assumptions and find out that there's, Kelly Clarkson's in town and you need to raise the price or something like that. So we integrate with Price Labs as well. And then from a lock standpoint, we partner with a company called Seam. So it's built into our system. It's not like another login that you need or anything like that. And they connect about over 150 different locks, including a bunch of thermostats, as well as like the Noise Aware and the Minutes. I never know how to say it. I think it's minute. Minute.
Yeah,
I always say minute.
Yep.
And then also even like garage door openers. So you have like the genies that are smart now, where you can say, hey, click a button and it opens the garage door. So we connect with all of those as well from an integration standpoint.
You have a MyIQ.
Yes, that's what it is. That's MyIQ.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's Chamberlain, I think.
Yep, I have.
One of
It's
the two.
my biggest frustration, and I actually think I probably could connect it now. I haven't tried, but I have 3 properties that can't do a Schlage door code. It has to be garage door only, because they have these Anderson doors and these Anderson door locks that are just a pain in the butt. And I wish, not to say that company is bad, but I would be happy if I never had an Anderson door in the rest of my life. So,
And we've all had those, right? Like, and one thing to also too, that because we partnered with Seam, they handle all of the major. So you've got the Schlags, you've got the Yales, you've got the big names too, right? Nest, Ecobee they're now working on a Ring integration as well too. And then they have, like I said, the garage doors, the noise monitors, and they are really proactive for us, which is really great. And they manage a lot of those different relationships with all those different vendors. So we're able to make a much deeper breadth of our lock systems and our smart devices than some other PMSs that are having to manage those individually.
wow, that's awesome because I think that's some of the biggest frustrations that a lot of people have, and especially when you're a new host and you're trying to figure it out, and that's one of the biggest things. As a realtor, I sell a lot of real estate, and I get a lot of people that are like, okay, I'm just getting started on my first property. What PMS should I use? And then we're obviously talking about PMS and pricing and all these different apps. So it sounds like you kind of have a pretty good solution all in for a new host that's just starting out.
Absolutely. And that's originally, when we hear that some of these terms of like ICPs and my ideal client profiles, or, who's my key people that I'm going after. And it's really, that's where I started, is people that there's so much out there. There's so much information. And, you have someone, for example, you talk about OwnerRez, that has a really steep learning curve too, right? So it might not be the best for somebody just. Also, what is their journey? Do they plan on having growing and scaling? Maybe some of these are better in that realm, but if you're also being like, I just need this for the tax benefits, or I just want to just do 1 or 2 and kind of see what I want to do with it. Some of these bigger systems are actually more hindrance. And I think even I can't remember which one, won't let you even join unless you have more than 2 or 3 properties.
Yes.
So there is this spot where it is a tougher group, because it's also sometimes harder to sell, hey, I need you to spend X amount a month, but we're going to save you all these hours. That is also something I think is a mindset shift, and it's a little tougher when you're first coming into this, because you're like, oh, I can grind, right? I can just push through and do this. But when we step back, and I think that was probably one of the biggest misnomers that I thought of being an STR host, is I'm actually running a business. We all just kind of think of these as these grinds, these side hustles, these pieces, but they're really true businesses. And when you step back and you shift your mind to that, then saying, oh, if I could pay something, anywhere from $70 to $100 a month to manage, save me 6 to 15 hours, that's a no-brainer to me, right? When you step back but you have to be in that mindset of being in a business owner standpoint. And then the other piece is, do you want to spend hours setting it up? There's all those different evaluations too. If you go with the cheapest, you go with the most expensive, all those, everything's got pros and cons to it. And so for us, we have also just a 1 standard pricing. We don't charge extra for locks. If you have 3 locks, 10 locks, 4 locks, whatever it might be per property, it's 1 standard pricing. Because there was a lot of confusion. I was talking to hosts of well, yeah, I think it's this price. And then I add another lock and they come back and say, oh no, that's an extra $5-10 or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Or for example, we just updated we're just in the process of updating and redesigning all of our co-hosting functions. So for example, having owner portals, owner statements, those types of things. Because a lot of the hosts that we talked to that were co-hosts were struggling with those tools as well too. So we want to make sure that you can start at us. So if you want to do 1 and 2 and you don't want to get any farther, we're also for you. But if you want to start 1 and 2 and you also want to scale, the last thing you want to do is start scaling and then you outgrow your system and now you got to go redo it all over again.
Yeah. Owner statements, as I co-host 10 properties, as we discussed. And owner statements is one of the big things. I just had, Bill Faith and Chris Wharton on a few weeks ago. And obviously AI is really revolutionizing some
100%.
of that type of stuff. So what are some of the AI things that you're looking into for your PMS at this point that is going to not only help you, but help these hosts?
Absolutely. I think a lot of things we talk about systems. When I say systems, people are like, oh, policies and procedures. Like, I got to write this 50-page manual. Like, none of those things need to happen. I think that when we ever hear SOP, that's what we do think. But it's not actually flashing out like, I click here, I click here, I click here. It's those high-level pieces. It's do we have a gas grill? Yes or no? But do we also supply propane, right? Where's the lockbox located? So, like, those types of things, we have areas in our system for, like, what's the cleaning closet code? Where's the cleaning closet? Can you send me a picture where it is? We have what's called FAQs, so we can start building out those, like, do you have a grill? Yes. Is it charcoal? Do you supply these things? Because then that we can leverage the AI in those scenarios, right? So a guest 10 o'clock at night's checking in, they've hit the door key 16 times and they locked it out, right? Because they forgot to hit the check mark button. They just typed the code and forget the check mark button. They could send a message and AI at that point can read it and be like, oh, hey, here you're having problems. It can then go read the actual property file and be like, hey, I understand you might have some problems with that. For right now, let's just get you in. Here's the lockbox and here's where it's at and here's the code. Yeah. So like those types of things, I think we can find AI to be really helpful. We also know that there's people that are hesitant with AI, and rightfully so in a lot of different areas. So we haven't deployed ours just yet. We're retraining and making sure that we're hitting and getting those guardrails. So some of our processes is that you can use it if you want, as in like it's just going to auto respond. It can draft those messages, or you can not use it at all too. And then we also have like kind of like the non-business hours, right? The quiet hours that we use as hosts. We can also use that as hosts and say, hey, I do want you to respond in these scenarios on these off. So a guest is locked out, but I don't need you to respond to be like, hey, what's events are happening in the next couple of days? Because AI probably won't know that and they may give misnomer information. So we'll get to that in the morning. You could send a nice like, oh, hey, right now the owner, she's out, she's sleeping right now, but I'll catch her in the morning. I'll make sure she gets this message. It can handle those types of things.
No, I think that's awesome. And I think it's great for, realtors like me to always try to figure out, what tools to recommend. So for, because you said you have a standard pricing for somebody that just has one property, it's their first one, what does that monthly cost look like? And do you also have direct booking websites, which is going to be another thing, my follow-up question to that.
Yeah. So right now we are just, our biggest competitors are Hospitable, so we're matching them. And so we're at $59 for the first two properties. And then I think we're $16 for everyone after that. So we're pretty much just right in line with Hospitable because they are our biggest competitors. And we just want to make sure that people have those same options and then can weigh those pros and cons. And then right now we only have direct booking widgets, but the websites is right on our next roadmap. And the one thing that's great about AI is that we can develop a lot faster than we could 2 years ago. So we say on the roadmap, we're like, oh, in like a month, great. So we're just figuring out how the hosting of that all works. So do you bring custom domains? Do we give you a domain? Those are the areas that we're still trying to figure out exactly how we want that to execute. But that's the next step for us as well.
No, I think that's huge. I think for the entry level, and I've recommended Hospitable probably 1,000 times for the entry level, but they're getting even more robust now with what they're doing as far as more people, larger managers and stuff going there, and they're getting more expensive because they're charging for. They're taking a percentage of your direct bookings, and VRBO, they're going to become the owner of record but they're going to charge you a fee for that. So, so for, don't get me wrong, it's still a great platform, but I think they're kind of transitioning out of what they used to be as for the, entry level host. And I think that kind of puts you in the lead as someone that could take the reins on that and still be able to scale, not only for the entry level host, but be able to do it and still be able to scale.
Yeah, because I mean that's the biggest, there's quite a few barriers to entry in STRs, right? It's that it's not a passive, even though people have been perpetrating that it's a passive business, right? And then it's getting a system in place so it can be more passive. It's not that they can't be more passive. It's just that they're never that way right off the gate. It's just like if you think about any job that you started, right? You don't just like show up and you instantly rock that job on day one, right? Like there's still all this onboarding process that kind of happens. And once you get past that, though, you learn your lessons. You maybe get some guidance, whatever that might be. And that's also where we come from of like, for example, we have like standard automations where we give you some, what I personally use in my business. We share all those templates out. We say, hey, here's the checklist that we use. We have some that are like, we always have the debate of checklists, right? You give them everything of like, put 3 rolls of toilet paper, go clean underneath still this. So we have like an experienced cleaner checklist and an inexperienced cleaner checklist, right? Where they just need to know the actual turnover of an Airbnb versus, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you walk me through the whole steps? So we share all of that like standardly with everybody too, to say, hey, if you want to copy this, go for it. You want to change it, do whatever you need, because whatever we can do to give a leg up to make it more, there's such a negative connotation around STRs in the world, right? Like they're the party houses, they ruin the neighborhoods, they're taking away, yada, 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 yada. And so how do we help perpetuate the good hosts and how do we help make them good hosts? And that's what we want to do, is help the people around us, because it only lifts the rest of the community up too.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, obviously we know a little bit of what's going on in Simpli Host and what's next for that business. What's next for your investment business? Are you looking to continue to invest? Are you looking to continue to grow your portfolio? And...
so I have major ADHD. So I have to be like, all right, I actually have a friend that I call and I'm like, hey, should I go buy a laundromat? She's like, no, work on your software. Or, hey, I really want to go buy a house in Milwaukee. I love the STR. I love the whole STR model because it lets me shine my hospitality. It lets me make people feel welcome in houses. It lets me take care of people. So I do love the STR version. I'm also a big proponent of affordable housing. So going into probably some of the spaces of smaller apartment buildings, those types of pieces. So for me personally, I see real estate being a journey. There's a lot of other businesses that I'm trying not to build and do because I can't do it all at once. That's how it usually fails. But even the standpoint of also some developments of, you hear some of those hosts out there right now that are really rocking it in the, hey, I took this 5-10 acres and I put, 10 cabins on it and I built this really great experience for our guests. So also open to that. I do have a little dabbling in some land management as well too. But there's so many opportunities I think a lot of this also just comes down to mindset across the board. When you get into real estate, you get your hard knocks, as you know, right? As an investor, you gotta get some tough skin to survive this game. But with that though, it's a mindset shift of like, if I looked back at myself when I was 20 and I said, hey, you're going to be doing this, I also have to make sure I'm not using my normal cussing self. But there'd have been a lot of like, no way, are you kidding me? These kind of things. And so when you look back and you say, what do you want to do and what are your next steps? It's as long as you have that open mindset and you want to say, and you are a problem solver and you just keep moving forward, there's so many opportunities, especially in the real estate space, right? You could go into MTRs. We dabbled in insurance stays for a little while. That's a fantastic area as well. Co-hosting has always been hard for me because I have always struggled to get the right people to co-host for. We're like, just let me run it. Like, I just give me those keys, let me run it, and then you let me know how I can communicate and make sure that you feel comfortable. But it's always difficult when anytime, as you know, for co-hosting, right? Like, you got to get the right people. You got to get the right people that you're co-hosting for, and a system can't solve that.
Yeah, no. I interview the owners and decide if they're a good fit for me. And my wife and I do things a little differently. Everybody knows on the podcast, we require our owners to let us redesign and remodel their property. And we ask for a $30,000, $50,000, $80,000 budget, whatever it may be for that property. And then my wife designs it. We go in 7 days, we set it up and we make it a super property. And we have 10 of the top performing properties in our entire market because of that. And so we're very selective. We are definitely not one of these property management companies that just is picking up every property left and right. I turned down 30 something properties last year and picked up 5. So
and you probably operate really well because of that, right? Like anytime that we break away from our processes, it just creates chaos and more downstream effects. And so I agree with, and I love that you guys have that requirements and also know your values and know where you'll bend and where you won't, because if we really want to do this really, really well, there's a reason that we have the experience that we do, right? There's a reason that we are where we are, and we have those receipts to prove that. And I love the fact that you guys do that, because there's not many that do. Like you said, there's a lot like, oh, I'll just bring everybody on. Just, oh yeah, you have a little apartment and, you put like some IKEA furniture in it. Let's get that baby listed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I joined a mastermind at one point that, their first thing was, how do we get you to 20 properties or 50 properties? I'm like, whoa. Yes. I don't want that. That's not my goals, right?
Yes.
I want better systems. I want better processes. I don't want to scale to be one of the 50 plus property managers. That sounds awful to me.
Yes.
I know. So,
and I think that's part of this, right? Is like all of this work, like, yes, you see the dollars behind it, but like knowing what you really want, like what does your lifestyle look like? Because, same thing. I've been in some masterminds and they're like, let's go 50 houses this year. And I'm like, no. Right? Like, I don't want to deal with all of that and that stress. And there's times where I'm like, oh yeah, I do want to go get that to a point, but like, you've got to know what kind of lifestyle you want out of that and how that's going to impact that, right? If you're like, oh, I want to travel all the time, but I'll take on every property management client that comes my way, you're not going to enjoy that travel, because we see it, right? People are at Disneyland, there's like 6 people on their phones, right? Talking, because they're not being able to be present and travel because they've taken their lifestyle doesn't match the choices they've made to have that lifestyle actually occur.
Yep. I had a podcast a while back and I talked about short-term rental burnout, because I've seen it more in the past 12 to 18 months than I did in the previous 3 years in this business, because a lot of people jumped into this business similar time that I did in 22 or post-COVID, and they thought it was this, easy thing, and they can hire all these things and they can not have to do anything. And all these people that say, I manage 100 properties a week and I work less than 3 hours, I call bullshit every single day and twice 100%. On Sunday. Because are you actually on your laptop doing something for that property for 20 hours a week? No, maybe that's only your 3 hours, but It's that phone call on Friday night at 9 p.m. and the HVAC isn't working and your VA that's overseas is not calling the HVAC company. You're taking time out of your vacation to handle that issue.
Exactly. So, all those things add up. And I think that people just forget about that. Like, to your point, right? Like when I'm saying I'm working 1 to 3 hours and I'm working 4 properties, like that's legit. Like we have all the other pieces. I'm dealing, those 1 to 3 hours are dealing with all the chaos, right? Of like the hot tub went out. We have those types of issues. And I think that all still goes back to how do you manage the properties? As in like, what are the aesthetics? Are like, for example, we stock every kitchen, like you can cook a Thanksgiving dinner in. And I'm sure you guys probably do the same, right? Like, so we also set the tone for our guests, right? We're communicating 5 days beforehand. On the day that they show up, they get a message in Airbnb, and we also send them a text of like, just in case, here's your door code and the address, right? We set them up for success. And the second they open that door, they get a welcome basket with all the goodies in it, a note. And they also, because we do those types of things, they give us a lot more grace. They're not you know how many times I get a message after somebody's checked out? They gave a 5-star review and they just put in the comment, hey, by the way, the back door lock didn't work. They didn't, because this was a little squeaky. They give us so much more grace during their stay, so they're not screaming on things that are not actually emergencies, because we do all those little things to make them feel like home and we care. Because we do.
Yeah. Yep. The podcast that I actually shot right before you were on was actually talking about what do you do about the problem guest? Like we all get them, right? We get that guest that before they even step in the door, you get a bad feeling, and then they're messaging you 19 times and they're complaining about a hair and the whole works. And part of my solution is stop messaging on Airbnb and pick up the phone and call.
Absolutely.
Right? Because
absolutely,
a lot of times when you're messaging, you take things differently in a message.
Tone
but
doesn't come across in words.
If you can just pick up the phone and have a conversation and figure out their problem, find a solution, because at the end of the day, we're all in the hospitality industry. We all want to provide great experiences, and it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows for every guest. And some guests are going to come in and your cleaner missed something or 100%. Something broke or whatever. Things happen. It's how we handle them. And some, a lot of people think, oh, I can only message through the platform, but it's okay to pick up the phone and call them.
Absolutely. And I think, you also mentioned of like, things are going to happen. Having a plan in place for those things also takes the emotion out of it, right? So like, for example, if we have a policy that if our hot tub, any of the hot tubs and any of the properties have issues, we give $50 a night as long as that issue occurs, right? So like if they're there for 2 nights and we can't get our hot, because some of these places are a little farther away from things, right? We can't get somebody out there, we refund them $100 if they have a 2-night stay. Apologies. We have processes in place where initially I would get those messages and whew, right? You're like, oh no, I gotta fix this now. We feel all of that instead of taking that. It's hard to step out of that moment and say, all right, but now I clearly know, hey, and that also lets me hand off those things. So when we do want to bring in those VAs, they don't have to be then sending me the guest sends them a message and they send me a message. What should I do? And then I send a message and they send it back, right?
Yeah.
Like it reduces a lot of that inefficiencies in that process. But it also, when you're creating a policy or you're creating it not in the moment, it lets you think so much more clear too, right? Like I can say, oh, remember that time that first hot tub broke? We decided it's $50 a night. Great. Just make that choice and move on. Or if somebody's coming in for, we have processes in place. If they're coming for a birthday, we do X. If they come for a funeral, we do Y. Like we do all those things and we just document them. And we can still make people feel really welcome and personalize that experience and yet still be standardized. There's that fine edge sort between like being a robot and then being super personal. You can still accomplish both of those and yet still be almost fully automated.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's awesome. So last thing I have for you for Simpli Host is somebody wants to get started. What does that look like? What does the onboarding look like? And, what do they need to do? Where do they go and what do they need to do?
Yep. So they're going to come to simplyhost.com and it is Simpli Host with an I, not a Y. We're still trying to buy that dang domain. So it's Simpli Host with an I. And you're going to come in, you're going to sign up for an account. We're going to ask you the basics, email, phone number, that kind of stuff. And then you're going to walk through a very simple onboarding of like, do you want these automated messages? Let us know what, I'm trying to think what else. We ask how many properties you're managing, that kind of stuff. And then you're going to book a call and you're going to get me. Because I want to make sure that we're getting as much feedback up front as we are. So we only launched about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months now. So you're going to get on board with me. We're going to pull in your properties. We're going to make sure all of your Wi-Fi information is entered. I really want to guide you through that journey. So you can feel empowered when you're done with that. You might have a couple little pieces of like, oh, I for example, we had somebody came in with 7 properties, right? They're like, I don't want to sit on the phone with you and do all these Wi-Fi networks, but like, thanks for walking us through. We know where it is, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that you're fully confident in that process. And then from an onboarding standpoint, you're good to go. And if you need any help past that, that's what we're here for. We are not the, oh, hey, submit a support ticket. We'll get back to you in a couple of days. We have our support chat. You're going to either get myself or one of members of my team right now until we can get to that place where we feel really confident that we are giving the same service we give our guests that come into our STRs. I'm going to be there and make sure that we hand hold that all the way through.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it and super excited for new hosts out there to be able to have another platform to jump into that sounds very simplified and makes it very easy to jump into this space. So any parting words for new hosts or co-hosts out there?
Other than we're here to help. That's what it comes down to is we understand the business. We're in the business with you. And we also know everybody operates their business a little differently. We are all individual. At the same time, we want to make sure that we cover as much as possible to make your lives easier. We want you to manage your rentals without your rentals managing you. The other thing is Joe, I'm going to pin you down. I'm going to get some co-hosting ideas from you to make sure that we have everything that you would need if you came to our system.
Yep, we will definitely further that discussion down the road and be happy to chat.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yep, and thank you all for joining me on another episode of the Short-Term Rental Playmaker podcast. We'll see you next week.